The rain-slicked courtroom in San Francisco smelled of polished oak and desperation when Alexander Hale first locked eyes with me. His gaze a scalpel slicing through my defenses. I was 28 then, testifying against the firm that fired me for being unapologetically gay. My voice cracking like thunder over the bay as I laid bare the humiliation of it all. But it was his cross-examination that shattered minute the questions. But the flicker in his steel blue eyes. A momentary hesitation that whispered he saw me. Truly saw me. Before the corporate machine dragged him back into its jaws. That flicker haunted me for years. A ghost in the rear view of my life as a civil rights advocate. Fighting for the invisible wounds of our community one lawsuit at a time. Alexander Hale became the villain in my story. The golden boy lawyer from a conservative firm who sued me into silence when I countersued for defamation. Twisting my truth into lies that echoed through headlines and left me hollowed out. We were both products of this sprawling American dream turned nightmare. Nicholas Rivera. Raised in the shadow of the Golden Gate by immigrant parents who taught me to stand tall despite the whispers. Him. Alex. The wasp bear from Boston transplants. Schooled in Ivy League halls where empathy was a luxury afforded only to the winning side. Our paths crossed like storm fronts, colliding in that trial that stripped us both bare, though neither of us knew it then. By the time the gavel fell in my favor barely, with a settlement that felt more like pity than justice, I thought I'd buried him in the archives of my scars. I moved on, or tried to, pouring my rage into pro bono cases for queer youth evicted by bigoted landlords, mentoring kids like the boy I'd once been. Wide-eyed and terrified in a world that preached liberty but practiced exclusion. San Francisco's fog became my constant companion, wrapping around the Victorian row houses where I lived alone. My apartment a sanctuary of dog-eared law books and faded pride flags. Friends urged me to date, to let someone in. But trust was a currency I'd spent long ago. Until the call came. For years later. On a drizzly October evening that mirrored the one from our trial. Nicholas. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez from UCSF Medical Center. Her voice was steady, laced with that clinical empathy honed from too many bedside vigils. We have a patient here who's been in a car accident. Severe amnesia. He won't tell us his name, but he keeps repeating yours. Says you're the only face he remembers. My heart stuttered, a freight train derailing in my chest. I gripped the phone, staring at the rain-streaked window as if it held answers. Who is he? I whispered, though some buried instinct already knew. Alexander Hale. She said softly. Do you know him? The name hit like a verdict I never saw coming. I arrived at the hospital under a sky bruised purple. The fluorescent halls buzzing with the low hum of lives hanging in limbo. Alex lay in a private room, monitors beeping a fragile rhythm. His once impeccable suit reduced to a hospital gown that swallowed his frame. Bandages swathed his temple, and bruises bloomed like accusations across his cheekbones. But when he turned his head, and his eyes those same steel blue eyes found mine, the world tilted. You. He breathed, his voice rough as gravel, a ghost of the polished timbre that had once eviscerated me on the stand. Not a question, not fear, just raw recognition, like I'd been etched into his soul while the rest of his life dissolved into fog. I froze in the doorway, the weight of our history crashing down. The man who'd sued to dismantle my world, who'd argued with cold precision that my pain was exaggerated emotional distress, now looked at me as if I were his anchor in a sea of blankness. Dr. Vasquez pulled me aside, her clipboard a shield. Retrograde amnesia, likely from the head trauma. He remembers fragments, flashes of faces, places, but yours is the only constant. It's unusual, almost poetic. He says he knows you from somewhere important. Poetic. The word tasted bitter. I should have walked away. Let the universe collect its debt without my involvement. But those eyes held no malice. Only a desperate plea that mirrored the boy I'd been. Lost and reaching for connection in a city that could swallow you whole. I'll stay, I said, surprising us both. Just until he remembers more. That night, as the city lights flickered through the blinds like distant stars, I sat by his bed, the silence between us thicker than the fog outside. He watched me with an intensity that peeled back layers I'd long fortified, his fingers twitching as if to bridge the gap. Tell me who I am, he murmured finally, his voice cracking on the edge of vulnerability. Tell me why you're the only one who feels real. And so, against every instinct screaming betrayal, I began. Not with the trial. Not with the venom of our past, but with the man before me. Stripped of defenses. A canvas waiting for colors we both deserved to paint. The days blurred into a tentative rhythm, each one a thread weaving us back from the abyss. Alex's recovery was a marathon of small victories, the first unassisted step down the hall. His hand gripping mine with a trust that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. The flicker of recognition when I described the salty bite of clam chowder from the wharf. His lips curving in a smile that lit the sterile room like dawn breaking over the bay. But the memories stayed locked away. A vault sealed by the crash that had stolen 2 years of his life in one screech of tires. His firm had sent flowers, sterile lilies that wilted faster than their loyalty, and a curt note about extended leave. But no one came. No family. No friends. Just me. The unexpected sentinel. I told him pieces at first. Neutral ground to test the waters. San Francisco's got this pulse, I'd say, wheeling him to the window overlooking the hill-climbed streets alive with cable cars and dreamers. It's where outcasts become legends. You were part of that once. A lawyer, sharp as a switchblade, fighting cases that shaped the skyline. He'd nod, hunger in his gaze. But shadows would creep in when I skirted too close to the edges of who we'd been to each other. Nights were harder. I'd go home to my empty apartment, the echo of his questions chasing me up the creaking stairs. Why me? The doctors theorized selective recall, a neurological quirk where trauma imprints the most emotionally charged imprint. For Alex, that was the trial, our trial. But he didn't know that yet, and I wasn't ready to shatter the fragile piece we'd carved. Instead, I dove into his past like a detective in my own life, poring over public records and old news clips on my laptop, the glow casting ghosts on my walls. He'd grown up in a Boston suburb, son of a judge and a socialite. Summers on Cape Cod where the Atlantic whispered privileges he never questioned. Harvard Law, then a fast track to a firm that defended the untouchables, corporations that crushed souls under the guise of progress. Our paths diverged until that fateful case. I'd been fired from a tech startup for marrying my partner in a quiet ceremony at City Hall. The CEO citing cultural misalignment in emails that leaked like poison. Alex represented them. His briefs a masterpiece of legalese that painted me as the aggressor, the disruptive element. Reading it now, years later, it stung less like betrayal and more like tragedy. There were notes in the margins of his filings handwritten, almost frantic, questioning the ethics, the humanity. Had he doubted even then? I bookmarked a photo from the trial, him in a crisp suit. Me across the table. Our stares locked in a battle neither wanted. In it, his eyes held that same flicker. A crack in the armor. Back at the hospital, therapy sessions peeled him open layer by layer. A speech pathologist coaxed words from his halting tongue. A neurologist mapped the fog in his brain with scans that looked like abstract art. But it was the quiet moments that bound Usme reading aloud from Steinbeck, his head on my shoulder as the words wove tales of migrants and dreams deferred, mirroring our own uprooted stories. This feels right, he'd whisper, his breath warm against my neck, sending sparks I hadn't felt since my husband's passing 2 years prior. Grief had armored me then, but Alex's vulnerability was a key turning in the lock. One afternoon, as golden light slanted through the room, he reached for my hand. His fingers were calloused from grips on parallel bars, but gentle, tracing the veins on my wrist like a map to forgotten shores. "Nicholas," he said, his voice steady for the first time. "I dream of you. Not fragments, just you. Standing in rain, looking at me like I'm the storm and the shelter." My throat tightened, the hook of our shared history pulling taut. I wanted to confess everything, to rage at the man he'd been. But instead, I leaned in, our foreheads touching in a communion that defied words. "You're remembering more than you think," I murmured. "And maybe that's enough for now." As weeks turned to months, discharge loomed like a horizon line. The firm pressured him to return, dangling promotions like bait. But Alex balked, his eyes darkening at the mention of boardrooms and billable hours. "It feels wrong," he'd say. Pacing my apartment, Tide insisted he stay with me during outpatient rehab, a decision that blurred lines I'd sworn never to cross again. My place, with its mismatched furniture and shelves groaning under civil rights tomes, became our cocoon. We cooked together simple things, like pasta with basil from the fire escape pot slaughter bubbling up when sauce splattered his shirt, his boyish grin erasing the lawyer's mask. But the past was a tide rising, inevitable. Flashbacks came in waves, a snippet of a closing argument, his voice booming in echo, the sting of a gavel, my name on his lips like a curse. One night, as thunder rattled the windows, he bolted upright in bed-me guest room, though the walls between us felt paper-thin. "I sued you," he gasped, sweat beading on his brow, eyes wild with horror. "God, Nicholas, I destroyed you. For them. For what?" I found him in the kitchen, huddled over a mug of chamomile that had gone cold, the city lights painting regret across his face. Sitting across from him, I finally unleashed the torrent, not with anger, but with the raw ache of survival. "You did," I admitted, my voice steady despite the quake inside. "You argued I was unstable, that my love for Javier made me unfit for the job. It cost me everything, my career, my home, the man I loved." Javier's face flashed in my mind, his laugh like summer rain, cut short by illness that respected no pride parades. Alex's face crumpled, hands covering his eyes as sobs racked him, the mighty lawyer reduced to a man unmade. "How can you even look at me? I don't deserve this kindness. Your face in my head like a lifeline." I crossed the table, pulling him into an embrace that smelled of hospital soap and fresh starts. Because amnesia isn't just loss, Alex. It's a chance to rewrite the story. You remembered my face not as the enemy, but as the one who mattered. Maybe your heart knew before your head caught up. In that moment, as his arms wrapped around me, tentative and fierce, I felt the first thaw in my frozen heart. We were two men forged in America's crucible, queer, flawed, reaching across divides we'd built ourselves. Forgiveness wasn't erasure. It was the bridge we chose to cross, hand in hand, into a dawn that promised more than verdicts. The bridge we crossed led not to easy sunrises, but to the jagged terrain of rebuilding, where every step unearthed landmines from our pasts. Alex's rehab intensified, physical therapy sessions leaving him drained, his body a map of aches that mirrored the soul work we tackled in stolen evenings. We'd walk the Embarcadero, the bay's chill nipping at our heels, tourists oblivious to the quiet revolution unfolding between us. He'd recount the fragments surfacing like driftwood, a childhood sailboat on Cape Cod, the salt spray mingling with his father's stern lectures on duty, law school debates where he'd argue for the underdog in mock trials, only to sell out for the firm's paycheck upon graduation. You're more than their puppet, I'd tell him, our shoulders brushing as we paused by the ferry building, its clock tower a sentinel over time's relentless march. You chose this city for a reason. San Francisco doesn't suffer fools or facades. And slowly, he believed it, his posture straightening not from suits, but from the weight lifted by truth-telling. He started journaling. Pages filled with sketches of my face, hazel eyes rendered with a tenderness that made my chest ache, and entries questioning the life he'd led, the privileges that blinded him to pains like mine. My own journey intertwined, shadows I'd buried rising to meet the light. Javier's death had been a slow unraveling, ALS stealing him piece by piece until only echoes remained in our Haight-Ashbury flat, where we danced to old Motown records and dreamed of a world kinder to loves like ours. Losing the job had been the final blow, thrusting me into advocacy where anger fueled my fire. But isolation was the price. With Alex, though, vulnerability became currency again. Late nights on the couch, wine loosening tongues. I'd share stories of growing up Riveramy Mexican-American mother baking tamales that filled our Mission District home with spice and song. My Irish father teaching me to box shadows in the backyard, both whispering, "Be proud, Mijo," even when they try to dim you. He listened, truly, his hand finding mine in the dim lamplight, thumbs tracing circles that spoke of apologies unspoken. I was blind, he'd say, voice thick, raised to win at all costs, to see people like chess pieces. You were the first checkmate that made me question the board. Kisses came tentatively, first on knuckles bruised from therapy, then foreheads in fevered dreams, until one fog-enshrouded morning, lips met in a seal of intent, soft and searching, tasting of second chances. But reconciliation's path is rarely linear. Minefields awaited. His firm called incessantly, offers laced with veiled threats return or face obsolescence in a cutthroat market. A particularly venomous email arrived one afternoon, forwarded by a sympathetic paralegal. Hale's lapse is a liability. Leverage your recovery, or we'll ensure no doors open in this town. Alex read it aloud, his voice steady but eyes storm-tossed. They're right. Who hires a lawyer with holes in his head? I snatched the laptop, deleting it with a ferocity born of too many battles. They don't own you. We fight back together. That night, we drafted his resignation, words flowing like catharsis, a public letter decrying corporate homophobia, citing our trial as the turning point where ambition cracked under conscience's weight. He signed it with a flourish, tears smudging ink, and I sealed the envelope, our hands lingering in solidarity. News spread like wildfire through Queer Network's headlines in the Bay Area. Reporter, ex-corporate shark, turns activist after amnesia revelation. Skeptics called it PR stunt, but supporters rallied. Invites flooding in for panels on redemption in the Rainbow Trenches. Our first joint appearance was at a Castro Community Center, a modest hall buzzing with faces like mine, young trans kids with wary eyes, elders who'd marched in the 70s. Alex spoke haltingly at first, voice cracking on admissions of complicity, but gaining strength as he described the fog lifting, my face the beacon guiding him home. You think memory is facts, he said, gripping the podium, me at his side like a co-conspirator. But it's feeling the gut punch of wrongness, the warmth of rightness. Nicholas showed me that. He could have walked away, but he stayed, teaching me that love isn't a verdict. It's the appeal we never stop filing. Applause thundered, but it was a single tear on a teenage boy's cheek that undid me. A reminder of why we fight, not for glory, but for the quiet dignities that make life bearable. Yet intimacy bred its own tempests. Doubts crept in under moonlit sheets, where bodies entwined but minds wandered. Am I loving you? Or the man I wish I was? Alex confessed one dawn. his head on my chest, heartbeat syncing with mine. I traced the scar on his temple. A crescent moon of survival. You're loving the man you're becoming. That's more than most ever dare. My fears mirrored his ghosts of Javier, whispering betrayal in dreams. The terror that history repeated. That suits like Alex's hid barbs waiting to strike. Therapy helped. Joint sessions with a counselor versed in queer trauma, where we unpacked the suitcase of our shared baggage. Forgiveness is an absolution, she said, her office overlooking the Presidio's eucalyptus groves. It's choosing presence over past. We chose. Daily. In small acts. Alex volunteering at a youth shelter. Reading legal rights to runaways. Me softening edges honed sharp by loss. Letting joy in through cracks I'd sealed. As spring bloomed. Painting the city in riots of color cherry blossoms dusting Lombard Street like confetti. Alex's memories returned in earnest. A floodgate cracked during a drive along the Pacific Coast Highway. Waves crashing like verdicts below the cliffs. The trial, he said suddenly, pulling over at a turnout. Wind whipping our hair. I remember arguing against you. But not the words, the doubt. I went home that night, poured scotch, and cried for the first time since law school. Because your eyes. They accused me of everything I feared I was. I turned to him, the ocean's roar fading to a hush. And now, they saved me. He kissed me then, fierce and full, salt on our lips from spray and tears. The highway stretching endless before USA, metaphor for the road we'd mapped together. Summer arrived with a vengeance. The city's usual cool giving way to heat waves that turned asphalt to mirages and tempers to tinder. Alex and I navigated the blaze. Our relationship a steady burn amid the chaos. He dove into activism with the zeal of a convert, co-founding a legal aid nonprofit aimed at queer workers facing discrimination. Ironic, given his pedigree, but potent. Our office, a converted garage in the Mission, hummed with interns and case files. The air thick with coffee and righteous fury. This is redemption, he'd say, poring over depositions late into the night, his profile sharp against the desk lamp. I'd watch from the doorway, heart swelling at the man emerging from amnesia's ashes, humble, hungry for justice. But growth soil is fertile with weeds. Old colleagues circled like vultures. Whispers of sellout and trauma bond slithering through happy hours. Alex politely declined. One evening, a former mentor cornered him at a bar fundraiser. Scotch breath hot with condescension. Amnesia's a convenient excuse. Hail. You were top tier. Now you're playing house with the plaintiff. Alex stiffened, glass midway to lips. But I stepped in, my voice low thunder. He's playing for keeps now. Unlike some who fold at the first ethical bluff. The man slunk away, but the barb lingered, festering in quiet moments. We confronted it head-on during a weekend retreat in the Redwoods, courtesy of the nonprofit's first grant. Towering sequoias filtered sunlight into cathedral shafts. The forest floor carpeted in ferns that whispered secrets. Hiking a trail slick with dew, Alex halted at a fallen log, bridging a creek like our fragile trust. Was it pity? He asked, eyes on the water rushing below. You staying because I was broken? A project to fix the fixer. I sat beside him, bark rough under palms, the air alive with bird calls. Pity's easy. This is harder. I stayed because in your eyes, even blank, I saw potential for us, for something real. But doubt's valid. We've both been burned by men in power. He nodded, vulnerability cracking his resolve. And we talked for hours about Javier's quiet strength, how his illness taught me love's fierceness and fragility, about Alex's hidden flings in law school, buried under straight-laced facades, the terror of coming out in a world that rewarded closets. By dusk, As we roasted marshmallows over a fire pit, smoke curling like unanswered questions, we forged a pact, weekly check-ins, raw and unfiltered, to tend the embers of trust. It worked. Mostly. Laughter returned. Easy and unforced. Over botched paella attempts in my kitchen, where cumin-scented steam fogged windows and his hand on my waist felt like home. Intimacy deepened. Not in grand gestures, but in the poetry of presence waking tangled in sheets. His breath syncing with mine. Stolen glances across crowded rallies, where chants of love is love echoed our unspoken vow. Yet the past's long shadow stretched further. A letter arrived, forwarded from the hospital, from Alex's estranged sister, Lydia, a painter in Portland who'd cut ties after their father's homophobic while reading. Heard about your accident. It read. Script elegant but edged. Mother's dying. Wants to see you, both of you. If the rumors hold. Rumors. The word stung. A reminder of prying eyes in our small world. Alex paced the living room, letter crumpling in fist. She abandoned me when I needed family most after Dad's funeral. When I confessed my doubts about everything. Doubts that included his sexuality, suppressed under familial expectations. I pulled him close. The scent of his cologne, cedar and citrus, grounding us. Go. Not for her, but for closure. I'll come if you want. We drove north the next weekend. Highway 101 winding through vineyards heavy with grapes. The Willamette Valley unfolding like a forgiven landscape. Lydia met us at a craftsman bungalow, her bohemian skirts swirling, eyes blue like his, wary but warm. Their mother lay in a sunlit bedroom, frail as tissue, oxygen hissing softly. Alexander, she whispered, hand trembling toward his. I was wrong. About your father. About us. Tears carved paths down her cheeks. Confessions spilling, a lifetime of silence on her own unspoken longings. Complicity in the coldness that drove him away. Alex knelt. Forgiveness a dam breaking. I forgive you, Mom. But I need you to know, Miral, I know. He glanced at me, hand extended, and I joined them. A circle closing. Lydia sketched us later. Over tea on the porch, 3 figures intertwined. The Columbia River gleaming below. Family's not blood, she said, charcoal smudging fingers. It's the ones who remember your face in the dark. Returning south. Lighter. We integrated her into our tapestry monthly calls. Art shipments that adorned our walls with vibrant abstracts echoing inner turmoils resolved. But trials, literal and figurative, persisted. Our nonprofit's first big case mirrored ours, a trans barista suing for wrongful termination. The employer's defense echoing Alex's old firm's playbook. He led the charge, briefs blazing with passion, while I coached the client through testimonies that tore at old wounds. Courtroom day dawned crisp. The federal building's marble halls echoing our footsteps. Facing the bench, Alex's voice rang clear. No trace of fog. Justice isn't blind. It's accountable. This woman deserves her dignity, as every American does regardless of who they love or who they are. The judge ruled in our favor, a landmark that rippled through networks. But victory tasted bittersweet when reporters swarmed, dredging our history. You're the amnesiac lawyer and his victim turned lover. One leered. Microphone thrust like a blade. Alex shielded me, arm firm around waist. We're partners in progress. Next question. That night, celebrating with craft beers at a dive in the Tenderloin. Toasts rose for resilience. But in bed later, Alex's touch turned urgent. Bodies mapping affirmations. You're my memory, he murmured against skin. The one worth keeping. Dawn found us entwined. The cities hum a lullaby. Our love a testament to time's alchemy turning enmity to alliance. Lost to legacy. Autumn painted the city in burnished golds, leaves skittering across Golden Gate Park like fleeting promises. As our lives settled into a rhythm both exhilarating and exacting, the nonprofit now dubbed Hail Rivera Justice Project grew tentacles, branches extending to LA and Seattle, interns clamoring for spots under our unconventional banner. Alex thrived. His lectures at UC Hastings drawing crowds of wide-eyed students hungry for ethics over expediency. Law isn't conquest, he'd proclaim, pacing the auditorium, sleeves rolled to elbows scarred by past battles. It's the scales tipping toward equity, one unbalanced case at a time. I watch from the back row sometimes, pride swelling like the fog rolling in, but a quiet unease stirred. Success bred scrutiny. Anonymous emails trickled in, vitriol from conservative corners decrying our woke agenda. One night, after a gala fundraiser where donors toasted our impact, Alex found a slashed tire on his hybrid. A note tucked under the wiper. Traitors get what's coming. Police dismissed it as vandalism, but sleep evaded us. Shadows lengthening in the apartment. We can't let fear dictate, I said, bolting the door with extra vigilance. My advocate's resolve clashing with lover's worry. Alex pulled me onto the couch, his embrace a bulwark. Then we doubled down. Visibility's our weapon. He was right. We amplified. Launching a podcast, Faces Remembered, sharing stories of queer resilience. His vulnerability the hook that resonated. Listeners poured in. Messages lighting up inboxes. A teen in rural Ohio coming out after our episode on forgiveness. A veteran reconciling with his service-era denial. Yet personal tempests brewed. My mother's health faltered, a hip fracture from a mission market, slip pulling me south to LA for weeks of caregiving. Tamales simmered on her stove. Her stories of crossing the border, weaving through pain meds and physical therapy. You found your match. Me, Joe, she'd say, patting my hand with gnarled fingers. That lawyer eyes like the sea. Heart like yours. Hold him through the storms. Distance sharpened longing. Nightly calls with Alex became lifelines. His voice bridging miles. Recounting days while I whispered encouragements. Reuniting at SFO. He waited at arrivals. A bouquet of sunflowers Javier's favorite clutched awkwardly. His grin boyish amid the throng. We drove home via the bridge. Sunset gilding cables. Hands intertwined over the console. But cracks spiderwebbed. Exhaustion from travel morphed to arguments over neglected chores. His late nights clashing with my jet-lagged haze. You're pulling away, he accused one evening. Dishes clattering in the sink. Like I'm the accident waiting to recur. I recoiled. Hurt flaring. And you're burying in work. Like the old you untouchable. Words hung heavy. Regrets immediate. We retreated to separate cornersome to the fire escape with a book. Him to the balcony sketching furiously. Dawn brought olive branches, coffee brewing. A sketch left on the counteress as intertwined oaks. Roots delving deep. I'm scared, he admitted over mugs. Steam curling between us. Of losing you to the life I almost led you into. Therapy recommenced. Our counselor guiding us through attachment styles forged in fire mind avoidant from loss. His anxious from erasure. Exercises followed, date nights sans phones. Exploring hidden alleys in North Beach where beat poets once wandered. Reciting Ferlinghetti under lamplight. Laughter returned. Fortified. An intimacy reignited, not frantic, but profound. Bodies conversing in the language of scars shared. Winter's solstice brought a milestone, our first holiday as a unit. Hosting a potluck for the nonprofit crew. The apartment brimmed with lights strung like stars. Tables groaning under pozole and pecan pies. Queer kin from all walks toasting resilience. Alex carved the turkey a nod to his East Coast roots with mock solemnity. While I spun vinyl of Ella Fitzgerald. Her voice a velvet embrace. as snow air for the city dusted the windows. He pulled me aside in the kitchen, ring box materializing from his pocket. Not diamond flash, but a simple band etched with remembered, silver catching light. "Marry me, Nicholas," he said, knees not bending but eyes pleading. Not to rewrite the past, but to author our future flaws. Fog. And all. Tears blurred my yes. The room erupting in cheers when we emerged. Fingers laced with promise. But joy's peak invites dissent. New Year's Eve. A call shattered the glow. Lydia. Voice fracturing, Mom passed. Peaceful. But she left letters. For both of you. The drive to Portland was somber. Rain lashing the windshield like grief's lash. Her home, still scented with oils and earth, held us in vigil, eulogies at a Unitarian chapel, where rainbow banners flanked the altar, mourners sharing tales of her quiet rebellion, secret donations to AIDS quilts, canvases hiding coded affirmations. The letter for Alex, apologies in watercolor script, pride for the son who'd chosen heart over heritage. Mine, he sees you, as I wish I'd seen your Javier. Love fiercely, for it's the truest law. Back in the city, ashes scattered in the bay from a chartered boat. We recommitted, vows exchanged in a civil ceremony at City Hall. The same hall where I'd wed Javier, now layered with new meaning. Witnesses, our patchwork family. Toasts echoing with hope. But marriage, like memory, is iterative. Early months tested vows with mundane phrase budget strains from nonprofit growing pains. My lingering doubts surfacing in therapy like icebergs. A case gone awry crystallized it, a client recanting under family pressure. Verdict lost. Alex blaming himself in a spiral that echoed pre-amnesia isolation. I'm failing you, all of you, he railed, pacing our bedroom, moon silvering his torment. I drew him down, hands framing face. Failure's part of the fight. You're not the lawyer who sued me anymore. You're the partner who stands with me. Spring thawed us anew. Blooms bursting in community gardens where we volunteered. Soil under nails, a metaphor for growth from dirt. Our love, tempered, emerged luminous conversations deepening into philosophies of queerness in America. From Stonewall's fire to Obergefell's grace. Our story of verse in the ongoing hymn. As the second anniversary of the accident approached, San Francisco exhaled into a languid summer. The kind where heat shimmers off the bay and festivals pulse with unbridled spirit. Our marriage, now a year woven, felt like that, vibrant, tested, alive. The Justice Project flourished, securing grants that funded satellite offices. Alex's name synonymous with reform. He keynote at national conferences. His story from adversary to ally, rallying cry for ethical pivots in law. I managed operations. My background in grassroots, organizing the glue, holding chaos at bay. But fulfillment bloomed in mentoring, guiding young advocates through imposter syndromes that mirrored my 20s. Yet prosperity's underbelly stirred. A profile in the New York Times arrived unbidden, the amnesiac's redemption, how one lawyer found his conscience, painting us as a modern fairy tale. Adulation poured in. But so did backlash. Op-eds from right-wing outlets branding Alex a self-loathing opportunist. Our wedding photo doctored into caricatures circulated on fringe sites. Hate mail escalated. One envelope containing a mock lawsuit, Rivera v. Hale, fraudulent affection. We weathered it with practiced grace, public statements denouncing division. Private nights fortified by each other's arms. But a deeper rift yawned, fertility whispers. At 34, with Javier's shadow softening but not vanishing, I'd harbored dreams of family, not replacement, but expansion. Alex, ever the planner, dove into research, adoption seminars, surrogacy ethics, fostering queer youth. Our home's big enough for more heart, he'd say. sketching nurseries amid case files. Decisions crystallized during a retreat to Yosemite. Granite monoliths standing sentinel as we hiked Mist Trail. Mist veiling faces like second skins. Atop Vernal Fall. Rainbow arcing in spray. Alex broached it. Kids mean chaos. Nicholas. Are we ready for that mirror our pasts reflected in tiny eyes? I leaned against him. Wind whipping. The valley sprawling like possibility. We've survived worse. Imagine teaching them forgiveness. Like we learned. We pursued fostering. Classes unpacking our histories for social workers who nodded empathetically. Approval came swift. Our home study glowing with references from nonprofit families. The call arrived on a crisp September morn. Twin brothers. 6 and 8. Siblings removed from an abusive home ladings boys, with wary smiles and backpacks stuffed with treasures. Mateo and Luca arrived with caseworker in tow. Eyes scanning our space like scouts in enemy territory. First weeks were a ballet of adjustment. Bedtime stories in bilingual editions. My mother's recipes bridging cultural gaps. Alex's legal savvy navigating school enrollments. His patience unspooling in Lego forts built on living room floors. Nightmares jolted them awake. Small bodies curling into ours. Whispers of monsters under the bed, echoing deeper fears. We'd hold them. Singing lullabies in Spanish croons from childhood. Alex humming folk tunes from Cape Summers until breaths evened. Parenting unearthed frailties. Luca, the elder, rebelled with silences. Drawings of fractured families that pierced like verdicts. Therapy wove us tighter. Art sessions revealing his terror of loss. You won't leave like Mama did. He'd ask. Charcoal hands in mine. Never. I'd vow. Alex echoing. Our ringed fingers a promise etched in silver. Mateo's joy was bomb-chasing pigeons in the park. His laughter a cascade but triggered my grief. Echoes of Javier's playfulness. One evening, as sunset bled orange over the bridge from our balcony, I confessed to Alex. Twins Abed. Its joy laced with ache. Like loving you beautiful, but born of breakage. He drew me close. City hum below. Then we honor the ache. It's what makes the joy sacred. Challenges mounted, schoolyard taunts for the boys' accents. Bureaucratic snarls in adoption proceedings from the bio-parents' rights camp. A hearing loomed. Adversarial as our old trial. The judge a stern figure eyeing our unconventional union. Alex prepped briefs with fire. But vulnerability cracked post-mock arguments. What if they take them? I've just found family. I cupped his face. Stubble rough. Then we fight like always. But win or lose, we're theirs. The courtroom echoed our history. Tension thick. But testimonies flowed, teachers praising their progress. Therapists lauding our stability. The gavel fell favorable full adoption granteteers mingling as we emerged into sunlight. Boys hoisted on shoulders. A family forged. Winter holidays shimmered with new magic. Hanukkah candles flickering beside a menorah Alex's sister sent. Noche Buena feasts where tamales steamed and stories spun of Abuela's migrations. But equilibrium shifted when Luca's biofather surfaced. A redemption-seeking specter petitioning visitation. Meetings mediated in neutral cafes tested boundaries. The man's remorse genuine but laced with entitlement. I was lost. He pleaded. Eyes on his sons. We navigated cautiously. Supervised playdates yielding tentative bonds. Teaching the boys agency in a world too quick to sever ties. Through it, our love evolveless fusion. More constellation. Each orbiting with autonomy. Date nights resumed. Babysitters from the nonprofit fold. Wandering Chinatown's lanterns where dim sum steamed like secrets shared. You're my constant. Alex murmured over custard tarts. Fingers laced. In fog or clarity. Spring brought closure's gift, a package from the firm settlement for the accident. bundled with Alex's personnel file. Yellowed notes revealing his pre-crash descent. Emails to HR questioning the discrimination cases handling. I was leaving. A sticky note read in his script. Your face was my sign to jump. Amnesia hadn't stolen intent. It had accelerated it. We burned the file in a backyard fire pit. Ashes scattering like old sins. Toasting with bourbon to horizons unbound. The boy's adoption sealed a chapter. But life's narrative unfurled onward. Threads intertwining in ways that humbled and hallowed. Summer festivals enveloped us brides Rainbow River coursing Market Street, where Mateo and Luca waved flags on our shoulders. Their cheers a defiant symphony amid floats and drums. Alex and I marched hand in hand. Not as symbols, but as selves. The project's banner trailing. Memory makes us mighty. Strangers' nods evolved to conversations. Our story a beacon for couples navigating similar straits. Amnesia swapped for addiction recoveries. Lawsuits for layoffs. Parenthood's alchemy transformed routines. School drop-offs with lunchboxes monogrammed HR. Alex's ties swapped for ties to parent-teacher nights. Luca's soccer games on crisp fields drew us cheering from sidelines. His goals met with hugs that smeared grass stains. Mateo's art bloomed. Murals on our garage wall depicting hybrid hero escapes fluttering over cityscapes dotted with pride symbols. For families like us, he'd explain. Paint smeared grin wide. But equilibrium's illusion shattered autumnal. A routine checkup unearthed shadows. Alex's scans showed residual scarring. A silent risk of seizures lurking like uninvited guests. Neurologist's words landed soft but seismic, manageable with meds. But monitor stress. We absorbed it in the exam room. Hands clasped under the table. Boys oblivious at home with a sitter. Driving back. Golden Gates spanned a steel ribbon below. Alex's grip tightened on the wheel. Am I broken goods now? The husband who might drop mid-sentence. Humor laced his fear. But eyes betrayed the chasm. I covered his hand. Steady. You're vital. We'll adapt like always. Meds. Mindfulness. Me. Adjustments cascaded. Yoga classes in the Presidio. Alex's lithe form bending into warrior poses beside mine. Breaths sinking to instructor's chants. Journaling resumed. His entries poetic dispatches from the brain's frontier flashes of gratitude amid what-ifs. The boys sensed undercurrents. Luca's questions probing. Papa Alex okay? We'd gather for family councils. Pizza-fueled roundtables where honesty reigned. Their hugs fierce talismans. Work's demands clashed. A high-profile case pulled Alex to D.C. for depositions, testifying on corporate accountability before a Senate subcommittee. I held the fort, shuttling kids to rehearsals. Mateo in Taekwondo. Luca in debate club while fielding calls from donors. His absence amplified worries. Nightly video chats flickered with fatigue. His hotel room backdrop sterile against our cozy chaos. Miss your face, he'd say. Pixelated smile weary. The real one. Not this ghost. Return brought reunions fire airport dash with balloons. Luca's sign, hero's home. But jet lag unearthed irritants, forgotten errands. Misplaced keys symbolizing deeper disconnects. An argument erupted over a misplaced adoption file. Voices rising until boys peeked from rooms. Eyes wide. Silence fell heavy. We apologized in whispers, tucking them in with extra stories. Then retreated to the balcony. City lights winking forgiveness. Stress is the thief. I murmured, head on his shoulder. He nodded, arm encircling. Then we reclaimed date first. Reconnection bloomed in micro-adventures, ferry rides to Sausalito. Picnics on Baker Beach where dunes met surf. Toes buried in sand as waves lapped confessions. I fear fading, he admitted. Horizon swallowing sun. Leaving you to captain alone. I turned. Sand gritting palms. We've got a crew now. And you're irreplaceable not despite scars, but because of them. Winter deepened bonds. Holidays layered traditions, Thanksgiving with Lydia's Portland clan. Her canvases now family heirlooms. Christmas Eve tamale-making marathons. Boys' hands sticky with masa. Laughter echoing my mother's kitchen ghosts. A seizure scare struck New Year's Alex collapsing mid-dance at a non-profit gala. Lights swirling to black but meds stabilized swift. ER vigil a family huddle of hot cocoa and hushed vows. Recovery reframed priorities, sabbatical planned. A cross-country road trip in a rented RV. Tracing queer history's veins. We launched west to East Alcatraz, echoes of isolation yielding to LA's WeHo walks. Then Vegas neon detour for boys' awestruck eyes. Taos Pueblos whispered indigenous resiliencies. Syncing with our Latinx roots. Chicago's Boys Town pulsed with ballroom vogues. Luca mimicking poses to cheers. Heartland tested. Rural motels where sideways glances followed our ringed hands. But open road talks fortified philosophies on America's dual soul. Liberty's promise clashing with prejudices persisting. DC capped it. Alex revisiting the hill. Now as mentor to pages hungry for change. You've come full circle, I said. Lincoln Memorial's gaze solemn behind us. He smiled. Cherry blossoms framing. Thanks to you. My North Star. Homeward bound. The RVs hum a lullaby. We integrated lessons, family game nights with history trivia. Boys' essays on heroes earning A's. Spring's thaw mirrored ours. Alex's health stabilized. Scans clear. Allowing tentative optimism. A book deal materialized, Faces in the Fog, a memoir of memory and marriage, his words a bridge for others adrift. Yet climax brewed in quiet. Luca's school project unearthed our trial clippings. His brow furrowing at the bad lawyer. We sat him down. Story unfolding gently mistakes. Mending. Miracles. You fixed him? Luca asked. Eyes round. Alex knelt. Honest. No. Buddy. He fixed me with love. Maturity's mantle settled softly as years layered like city's fog banks. Thickening yet translucent. The boys crested into teens. Mateo, at 14. Lanky with a skateboarder's swagger. Passions igniting in coding clubs where algorithms danced like his taekwondo forms. Luca, 12. Debate team's firebrand. Words his weapon in mock trials, echoing Alex's cadence. Our home, once a duo's haven, thrummed with hormonal tempests and triumphs report cards pinned like medals. Garage band jams vibrating walls till neighbors grinned indulgently. The project evolved into a national force. Satellites in 10 states. Alex's book of bestsellers spawning TED Talks where audiences leaned in. Captivated by amnesia's unlikely grace. I stepped into executive directorship, steering vision while he toured. Our schedules a juggle of FaceTime check-ins from green rooms. Distance honed appreciation. Reunions sparked with fervor, him sweeping through doors post-flight. Boys tackling in hugs. Me claiming a kiss that tasted of airports and ardor. Challenges morphed. Mateo's first crush. A non-binary classmate. Navigated with awkward dad talks over ice cream. Alex's legal lens demystifying labels while I shared Javier's tales of unapologetic affection. Love's a verb. I'd say. Cone dripping. Do it boldly. Luca's activism flared protests for climate justice intersecting queer rights. His signs handmade with our garage paints. A school suspension for a heated exchange with a bully tested us. Courtroom calm from Alex mediated reinstatement. But home debriefs unearthed his rage. They called him freak like they did us. We rallied. Family therapy evolving to empowerment circles. Boys' voices gaining ground. Health specter lingered benign. Alex's checkups routine. Meds a mere footnote. But mindfulness wove deeper meditation apps shared. Forest baths in Muir Woods where ancient trees schooled us in endurance. Lydia visited often. Her art studio in our spare room birthing collaborations, murals for the project's lobby. Swirling colors of redemption. A seismic shift quaked mid-decade, the firm's dissolution. Skeletons unearthed in a class action scandal, discrimination payouts echoing our genesis. Ex-colleagues sought Alex's counsel. Contrite calls begging absolution. He fielded selectively. One dinner with a former rival yielding alliance. Pro bono hours for our cause. A bridge from enmity. Cycles break when we choose. He reflected later. Wine glass raised in our kitchen. Boys' abed. Parenting's pinnacle pierced sweetly, Matteo's quinceanera. A fusion affair in the Mission mariachi horns blending with DJ beats. His suit sharp as Alex's old trial attire. But smile-free. We danced Bajo la Mesa. My mother's recipe for joy in every step. Luca's bar mitzvah followed. A nod to Alex's reclaimed heritage Torah portions on justice recited flawlessly. His voice steady. Our pride a chorus. Intimacy. Battle-tested. Deepened into soul song. Anniversaries marked not with fanfare, but fidelity weekends in Big Sur cabins. Waves crashing as we renewed vows on driftwood altars. Through fog and fire. We'd murmur. Rings glinting. Doubts. Once tempests. Now ripples mine on legacy. His on longevity dissolved in dialogues that fortified. Climax crested unexpectedly, a documentary offer. Remembered faces. Profiling our arc. Filming invaded cameras in the courtroom, reliving trial footage. Interviews with boys unearthing generational wisdom. Premiere night at the Castro Theater. Marquee aglow. We sat flanked by family. Screen flickering our raw beginnings to triumphant now. Applause swelled. But Luca's whisper cut through. That's use unbreakable. Post-screening Q&A. A heckler rose. Amnesia fairy tale or calculated comeback. Alex stood. Mic in hand. Voice resonant. Neither. It's human flawed. Fierce. Forgiven. Like America at its best, remembering not to repeat, but to rebuild. Years flowed. Boys launching Matteo to Stanford's CS program. Dorm unpacked with our teary send-off. Luca to Berkeley's poli-sci. Debate trophies in tow. Empty nest echoed at first, but refilled with purpose, mentoring their circles. Travels to queer archives in Berlin, where Stonewall's global echoes hummed. Aging graced us, gently silver, threading Alex's hair like wisdom's lace. My laugh lines mapping joys. Health's final curve, a minor stroke for him at 60. Speech slurring briefly. But rehab's echo of our start me at bedside. Coaxing words with patience born of love. Your face. He slurred. Eyes clear. Still the only one. Recovery swift. It pivoted us to legacy, endowing scholarships. Writing joint op-eds on enduring rights. Grandkids arrive Matteo's twins. Luca's adopted daughter tiny cyclones filling holidays with chaos cherished. In Twilight's embrace. On our Presidio porch. City sprawling eternal. Alex's hand in mine. We'd reflect, from lawsuit to lifeline. He'd say, sunset gilding us. Worth every scar. And I'd affirm, heart full, every one. Decades distilled to essences. Our story a tapestry hung in the annals of quiet revolutions. The boys, now men, wove their paths, Matteo pioneering AI ethics at a Silicon Valley startup. Algorithms audited for bias with a founder's fervor. Luca clerking for a Supreme Court justice. Briefs blazing trails for trans protections. His Weddinga joyous union under Redwood Stowe, a poet whose verses rivaled Lydia's strokes. Grandchildren toddled through our downscaled flat. A cozy eyrie overlooking the bay. Their giggles chasing echoes of early chaos. The project. Rebranded Rivera Hale Legacy. Spanned continents. Fellowships nurturing activists from Lagos to Lima. Alex's memoirs spawned sequels, Fog Lifted, Fatherhood and Fortitude, His Voice. Gravel Softened by Time. A Grandfatherly Rumble in Podcasts. I curated Oral Histories. Voices of elders like us chronicled in archives that outlived flesh. Health's inexorable tide rose. Alex's mobility waned. Kane a companion on slow strolls through the Japanese tea garden, where koi swirled like memories. I'd steady him. Our gates synced as ever. Pauses for benches yielding philosophies. Regrets. He'd ask. Eyes on blossoms. None. I'd reply. You remembered the face that mattered mine. And I. Yours. Lydia passed gently. Her studio ours by will. Canvases bequeathed to museums with notes for the lovers who painted outside lines. We honored her with a showing. Walls alive with color. Toasts to the aunt who'd mended familial fractures. Final chapters unfolded with grace. A Lifetime Achievement Award at the LGBT Historical Society Gala. Stage lights warm as we accepted. Hands clasped. Ovation, a wave crashing. From adversaries to architects. Alex intoned. Voice steady. We built bridges where walls once stood. For our boys. Their children. And the faces yet to be remembered. Post-ceremony. In the green room. Alone amid mirrors reflecting silvered selves. He turned to me. Breath short, but eyes eternal blue. Nicholas. If fog returns. It won't erase us. I whispered. Foreheads touching. The hook of our beginnings sealing the end. Your face, our faces are etched forever. Months later. As autumn fog cloaked the city once more. Alex slipped away in sleep. My hand in his. The monitor's hush a peaceful gavel. Grief came not as storm, but sea waves receding to reveal treasures. Letters from mints. Photos of progeny thriving. The ring on my finger a talisman. I carried on. Stories steward, volunteering at the shelter where Alex first found footing. Telling our tale to wide-eyed youth. Love isn't amnesia. I'd say. Their faces mirrors of ours young. It's choosing to remember the good. Forgive the rest. And walk forward together or in echo. At 82. On that same pier where prompts of our youth might have sketched us. I scattered his ashes into the bay. Wind carrying him home. The Golden Gate loomed. Eternal witness. As sunset painted the water gold. And in that light, I saw not loss, but legacy of face remembered. A life redeemed. Humanity's quiet triumph in a world ever striving.